Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 23-year-old competitive boulderer from Canada, currently living in Montreal. Welcome back to the COMPCLIMB training series, where I record most of my training, provide in-depth analysis of every session, and just chat about climbing with an emphasis on competition. So this first session that we're going to jump into is going to be taking place at Bloc Hochelaga, and it is going to be a bouldering volume and variety session. And oh boy, was this session, both of these sessions today, very difficult to execute. So of course, Maddie and I recently arrived home from traveling in various countries, the most recent of which was South Korea. And South Korea is on basically as different of a time zone as you can possibly be. So from Canada, South Korea is a full 12-hour flip. So you just take the AM and you flip it to a PM, which means it is very difficult to change between these two time zones. And we're like 4 or 5 days in of being home, which is typically when I find myself getting hit with the jet lag the hardest, about 4 or 5 days in. And yeah, I woke up at I think it was like 3 a.m. today or something, and I just could not fall back asleep. I'm trying to wean myself off the melatonin and return to normal. So I was just lying in bed awake since 3 a.m. and then now I have to go climb. Obviously being tired from the first couple days of training, especially coming off of some rest, and now you mix that in with no sleep, it was definitely going to be a challenging day. But luckily, climbing here at Bloc Hochelaga, full of brand new boulders, the psych was definitely a valuable weapon and came in handy and helped me conquer my super sleepiness. So with the bouldering variety and volume session, which we're doing right now, if you recall from the last episode, the idea with this session is that this is one of the new kinds of bouldering sessions we're going to be adding on the program, and the idea is just to focus up our bouldering sessions a little bit. So we're trying to make time on certain days to do sessions where we try to get lots of different moves in, go for volume, go for variety, and then also dedicate certain sessions to trying really, really hard boulders and really hard moves. So this session is the one where we're trying to make time for variety and volume, meaning that I'm not necessarily trying to project boulders in this session. So I'm not going to give myself an attempt cap necessarily, but I want to just make sure that I'm not, spending a whole session on one boulder. And let's say with the variety and volume sessions, if we had to put a number on it, I'd say we would want to get at least like 6 different boulders in above V8 that we get on. That's an approximate gauge for what I'm trying to go for during this session. But yeah, the more than 6, the merrier. And so I was a little bit worried when I chose Bloc Hochelaga today for the session that they might have 1 or 2 very epic and tempting looking white tags up in the gym, which are the hardest boulders at the Bloc Shop gym. And I usually just love to project those boulders because they're so much fun. But of course, that's not what we're trying to do this session. So I was lucky today actually that there's only 1 white tape up in the gym, I think. And it was kind of like a crimpy looking kind of classic outdoorsy style boulder. So I wasn't necessarily too tempted by it. So it turned out that Hochelaga was actually a perfect gym for this session, and there were no boulders that could tempt me to stray away from the session. Because even with my new motivation to train really well and effectively, and just put some awesome months of dedicated training in for next World Cup season, man, it's always a constant battle with just my psyche to climb and try hard boulders. And a lot of the time, I just want to stray from whatever the session on the program is and just, project and climb around for fun. So anyway, the point is that Block Shop Hochelaga was perfectly set up for me to stick to the session. And we ended up trying a wide variety of boulders, especially because the entire gym was new and I had a lot to choose from. So that last powerful V11 that we managed to work our way up, I was like bearing down so hard and really forcing my way through that boulder, since my muscles were just, I had to like make a note of forcing my muscles to contract this morning. I could have fallen asleep at any time during the session, honestly. It was one of those days. But it was kind of satisfying to do a hard physical boulder, even in this state. And now we could move on to some other ones. So this boulder that we're trying here has what I'm realizing are some of my weakness holds. So probably my biggest weakness hold right now of anything, I would say, is actually the line of circle slopers by Snap, which is the finish hold of this boulder here. And I just always struggle on these holds. I find I don't know how to pinch them really well. And they also typically require some wrist power to hold them well, and you kind of have to twist your wrist in weird ways. And so the finish move of this boulder being the crux, and using probably the hold that I'm worst at, definitely made for a few finish droppers. And even the rest of these holds on the first couple moves of this boulder, I'm not the best at, like these slopey squadra edges. I find that my skin gets really sweaty and I'm just like slipping off of these holds. But that one was a good little anti-style boulder to conquer. And so another thing I'm trying to go for with this new training program is trying to really stick to the time limits pretty well. We have been going overtime a lot recently. It's like when we were abroad traveling and even in the sessions that we had before we left. And so I'm just trying to be like really perfect with the training and trying to train optimally. And one of the ways I can do that is also by sticking to my time limit. So anyway, I had like 20 minutes left in the session at this point, and there were a couple really good looking slab boulders that I wanted to get on, such as this one. And they're both graded V8, but they both proved to be very spicy. Like I usually know how I'll feel on Block Shop V8 slab, and usually I won't struggle too much with them. But these couple slabs we're going to get on were very, very tricky. And this black boulder in particular was probably my favorite bowler that was set up in the gym. This one was really good. This hop across move where you have to pause for 1 second before you paddle was really, really nice. And then this last move was really well forced as this delicate dyno move. Like the finish hold was just a little too bad that you couldn't launch yourself at it. And the foothold was also so bad that you couldn't just statically stand up. So that one was like a really, really well set slab, and I had a good time working that and really got stumped on it as well. And this V8 slab also proved to be extra tricky and took quite a bit of figuring out. Again, we're using just my absolute nemesis holds. Like I was really having to battle with these holds all morning session. And yeah, I was like really struggling to figure out how to grab these ones, especially the second last circle. This hold is just so bizarre. It's like just shallow enough that you can't really pinch it and grip it really hard, which is deceptive too, because it looks pretty good. Like this one that I'm grabbing with my left hand here, it looks like it's good, but it's so shallow and just not good, and makes you have to really be delicate through this sequence here. And I think I'm kind of having a little bit of a beta break as well on this boulder. I think we're meant to go down with our left palm where my left foot is, but I couldn't quite get into that position, so I had to find a bit of a taller way through this sequence. But this was another really, really well set V8 slab that tripped me up a lot. I actually had a couple attempts off camera, so that one took me more than however many tries made it into this video. But yeah, that one was really tricky and pretty awesome. And so we're going to move into our second session, which is our campus session. And this session is kind of just randomly thrown on the program. Obviously, we're not like in a power building phase right now, like coming right off the plane and having a comp in a week. I'm not necessarily trying to build power or strength. The logic behind programming in this campus session right before the comp was just to get a little bit of the bounce activated, because I haven't campused in like a month and a half, and my body's starting to feel a little bit less bouncy, a little bit less powerful, and I don't want to be feeling like that going into a competition, of course. And so even by just doing one campus session, you sort of reawaken the bounce in your body and the really powerful feeling. And the logic with this session is that it's actually more neurological and activating those pathways rather than trying to gain strength or power or whatnot. And it actually proved to be the case. So, what I mean is, as this session was going on, I felt myself gradually getting into the rhythm of just bouncing around, using my momentum really well, and getting some good flows. So, I think this session was actually quite successful and will probably help me feel a lot better on comp day. And this boulder that we're trying here is a really sick one. I made this one shortly before we left to go to Europe, I think. I remember trying it for one session, and it's got some really cool moves on it. I was feeling okay in this session. Honestly, I was feeling physically pretty decent, but man, I was so sleepy. I also could have fallen asleep at any point in this session. So both of these times I stick the crux move up to this crimp, I just kind of gas out and don't have the fitness to finish this one off, which was a shame because this one was like a 5-star campus boulder, I think, and had some super cool moves. And like I was talking about in the last episode, I'm really trying to embrace the idea of not going too hard to trying to send boulders. Of course, when I'm trying a boulder on an attempt, I will try very hard to send it. That's not what I mean. What I mean is maybe if I spent 3 or 4 attempts more on that boulder and tried really, really hard, I probably could have actually sent the boulder. And of course, it's very satisfying to send these boulders, but it's actually less optimal for training because I kind of already got the value from that boulder. I stuck the crux move twice, and I went and did the last half of the boulder. So it's actually in my best interest to go get some more variety and try some more boulders and get some more moves under my belt. And so I'm embracing this new idea really well right off the bat, I think. So I was pretty proud of myself that I was able to walk away from that boulder with an unsatisfying no send of it, but for the sake of training more effectively. So we're off to a good start. And it's one thing to be able to do this on my own boulders on the spray wall. It's harder though to walk away from banger set boulders on the regular sets. So hopefully I'm able to keep embracing this idea going forward with the training. But thank goodness I moved on from that last one because it meant we got to try another sick one like we just did. That boulder I just made up on the spot and had some really, really good flows. That's another good example of just the bounciness that I was feeling in this session. And so, this campus session is scheduled as 45 minutes, as all the campus sessions are. I usually schedule the campus sessions about 15 minutes shorter than the bouldering sessions, simply because campusing will tire you out more than bouldering will, for the most part, since it's just a bit more physically intense. And it's kind of always difficult to quantify a bouldering session with an intensity by simply just giving it a duration, because of course what we do in a boulder session varies from session to session. So, in theory, an hour and a half of bouldering could actually be less intense than an hour of bouldering sometimes. But for the most part, I just schedule the campus sessions 15 minutes less than the boulder sessions because they're usually more tiring. But yeah, we finished off with another boulder that I made up on the spot. This one was actually really sick. I kind of actually just want to come back to Hochelaga for whatever my next campus session is, just to try this one again, because it had some really sick moves, like the static match on the black sloper, and then sort of shoulder bustering into the blue sloper. Definitely want to try that one again. So yeah, next campus session I'll probably come back here. But anyway, that wrapped up this first day of training, and let's jump into the next one. So here we are for the next day of training, and we are going to be climbing at Allez Up M today. And so as we are getting our session starting this morning, I am realizing just how difficult the session is going to be. So my body was in quite a bit of pain. I was pretty sore, feeling pretty rusty. My joints weren't feeling super awesome. And this is pretty much just because it was yesterday that I woke up at 3 a.m., got an absolutely terrible night of sleep, since we are still adjusting from the jet lag of doing a full 12-hour time zone shift, which is kind of just as bad as it gets. And so it's going to be taking a little bit longer to get super accustomed to Canada time. And I think that the stat with sleep is, if you have a bad night of sleep, you're going to be feeling it in 2 days, basically. So yesterday morning when we were climbing at Bloc Shop is when I woke up at 3 a.m. So now that it is actually the next day, here while we're climbing at Allez Up M, my body's going to be feeling the effects of the bad sleep, and it's going to be feeling the rust and the pain. So yeah, I wasn't feeling the most awesome for this session, which was really forcing me to embrace an important idea with training, and an idea that I'm notoriously bad at, or I often forget to fully embrace and fully buy into. And that's the idea of scaling your sessions to the climber that you are on that day in that session. So the mistake I often make is, especially when we're trying to perform, or we have some sort of maybe a competition coming up, or we have a project that we really want to send, maybe we have a time limit on the project too. It can be really easy to slip into a mindset of thinking that, man, I want to do this boulder and I know how good I am as a climber. And so you try and force your way through a session to try and prove something to yourself, basically. Maybe I'm kind of explaining this a bit weirdly, but when I start thinking, okay, I'm training for the World Cup circuit next season, right? And I know how good I have to be, and I know what I'm capable of when I'm feeling at my strongest. And so I'm having one of these bad sessions, and I'm trying a boulder that I know that I should be doing in a better circumstance. Sometimes I'll try and force it, and I'll just try so hard and force my way through some crimps or something while my joints are hurting, and my body shouldn't be doing what it's doing right now, but I'm just trying to force it because I have something to prove to myself. I often struggle with this in training, and I think while the whole theme going forward, while we're training for next season, is to really try and train optimally and not get too caught up in sending, all of these things, it's really important that I don't lose myself and get caught up in this idea of trying to force things just to prove to myself that I'm good enough to do a certain boulder or something like this. What's more important is to be just a bit more self-aware and say, okay, well, sure, maybe I do think that I can do this boulder, or I know what I'm physically capable of, but that doesn't mean I have to do it right now. Because I know that I'm feeling beat down from the lack of sleep or something, right? So what's important is that I, honestly, it just kind of comes down to ego checking yourself, right? I have to check my ego and say, listen, I don't need to send this boulder. to prove anything to anyone, you know, myself or the YouTube camera. I just have to, I really want to train effectively and optimally right now. And so I need to scale my session, and I need to scale the boulders I'm going to try to how I'm feeling on any given day. And I guess this is all to say, like, for this specific session, there were a couple more white tapes up in the gym. So that last boulder we did was a white tape, and that was one of 3 white tapes that were up in the gym. And anyway, the other 2 white tapes definitely looked harder, and I knew that if I were to go try those boulders, I would absolutely run into this problem. They looked very physical, and given how I felt on this session, I knew that I would perform terribly on them, and I would start thinking, oh man, I should be able to do this boulder. I know that I can, and I would probably try it too many times, try and force the boulder, probably fail on it, and just have like a frustrating feeling session. So what I did successfully during the session was I avoided trying these couple white tapes, and I stayed away from them to prevent this negative spiral in the session and unnecessary situation where I try to force some physical boulders that I just shouldn't be trying the session. And so, yeah, this is all to say that I did this quite successfully today, actually. I tried boulders that were in my range where I could perform on them, even though I wasn't feeling physically the best, and it made for a pretty good session. I was moving well on boulders. I was also trying hard though. Like I wasn't just trying boulders that were too easy. Like you definitely don't want to take this idea too far. And if you're feeling bad, like you just don't try anything that's challenging yourself. So overall, I'm pretty happy. I think I've been embracing the idea of training optimally pretty well. And I haven't been caught up in projecting anything too much. I'm training smart. I'm making good decisions. And I made it the most of kind of a rusty, bad feeling session this morning. But anyway, this boulder that we're trying here was definitely the highlight from the session, I think. This one was a really well set slab, and they've been putting up a lot of really good slabs at Mile End recently, especially the pink tapes. They're always quite challenging and always feel incredibly satisfying to make my way through. So check out this move, that little jump across is going to feature today's tip of the day. So today's tip of the day is going to be talking about this kind of jump across move on a slab where it's more optimal to cross our leg through. And something that is really important to emphasize on this kind of move is to really embrace the idea that it is a step through and not usually a jump through in regards to when we're crossing our leg through. So what I mean by this is I actually don't have to jump really a lot at all on this move, because if I do the move slow enough and I just step and casually work my right leg through, it's going to land in the position I need it to on the foothold, and my hand will get there. And I don't actually need to gain much distance by jumping. And so the reason that stepping through really slowly is effective is because there's less of a violent launch and a violent catch. And jumping out of this position, I may hit the wall as I'm transitioning across and kind of bobble away from it and come too far away from the wall. And that's going to make it really hard to hold this end position, which is kind of like this tenuous layback. Whereas if I go really slowly through it and just kind of step through this move, and even kind of pause a little bit when I'm hovering over my left leg, it really slows the move down, controls the move, and helps me catch the end position much more slowly and much more gently. And so yeah, that's today's tip of the day. When you're doing a step through move or you're crossing your leg through on a slab, really try to do it slowly and almost treat it as a walk instead of a run or a jump. And then yeah, after sticking such a low percentage move, it's like nerve-wracking to keep yourself together and finish off this boulder with such a tenuous, really cool ending sequence actually. This super slow unwind into a terrible finish crimp was really creative, and actually a really creative use of transitioning over a dihedral. So shout out to whoever set that boulder, because it was a really epic slab. And yeah, I definitely got to start coming to Mile End more, especially for the awesome slabs. But anyway, we're going to finish the session with probably the most epic looking boulder in the gym. definitely the most visually striking. Anytime they set with these big yellow cheetah circles, it's always really cool. And Maddie had flashed this boulder earlier in her session, and she challenged me to flash it. So I had a little bit of nerves as I was trying this lâcher. Had to keep up with Maddie, but luckily we were able to take down the Maddie challenge. And so basically what is going to happen going forward is, so we're finishing our day of training today. And if you saw just by that little program outline, tomorrow is like an kind of an unusual looking day of training. And basically, for those who missed the last episode where I kind of broke down the content that's going to be going forward, tomorrow is not going to be a typical training day and won't be part of the COMPCLIMB series. What it is actually is one of the content days that I'm going to start doing going forward, where I film some other kind of video. Maybe it's a vlog, maybe it's some sort of tutorial. But anyway, tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to film a vlog with like kind of a fun idea. And then that video is going to come out, and it won't be like, you know, one of the typical training videos. It'll be kind of its own video. And yeah, this is because Maddie and I are really psyched to start varying the content and putting out new kinds of content. So yeah, you can look forward to a vlog coming out soon. But before that will probably be the Rose Block Championship video, because after the day of filming tomorrow, I'm gonna have a rest day, and then we're gonna go compete in the Rose Block Championship, which I am so psyched for. It is gonna be epic. So stay tuned for that, probably coming up next. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.